Testing. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay. Hi, I'm Black Ratchet. We're going to talk about Ghetto, IDS, and honeypots for the home user, which, Ghetto is just sort of a term I decided to really toss in there because it's not anything professional. We're not going to be deploying top layer on our homeland, but anyway. I like this. This is my favorite XKCD comic. It's printed out on my cube at work. And I just love to have this where they have all a giant virtual LAN of Windows machines, and you can tell them how they get infected. And it's a lot of very Hollywood, but yeah, it's never going to happen. And technically, I can't tell you how to do it here. So let's go move on. What are we going to talk about? What exactly happens on the end of your internet connection? Open source tools that will set up your own honeypot and IDS and tie them together so you can actually tell what the heck's going on. And what you will likely see and what it means and how to respond. Who am I? Just another phone freak from Boston. I talked at Hope No. 6, DEF CON, and other conferences. I've been using these tools since about 2002 or so. First time I got exposed to them was a Capture the Flag contest, so they are battle tested. GCIA, so obviously these letters mean that I know more than all of you. Really nice guy who will talk your ear off these things if you donate alcoholic beverages to him. Why am I using PowerPoint? You saw that I was using PowerPoint last year, 2 years ago at the last Hope. I decided to be cool, use Linux, use OpenOffice, open source, it's wonderful, plug it in right before my presentation, wouldn't actually work with the projector. So I didn't want to expose you to that again, so I bit the bullet and decided to use Windows. Anyway, let's actually get to the meat of the subject. This is your internet connection. This is what everyone thinks it is. Information superhighway, got all these little flags down here showing all the different countries you can get to. And, you got your highway, and it's fast, it's wonderful, no one's on it, you're going to go scream through and get to all these faraway places. This is what your reality is. Do you realize how hard it is to go search on Google Images for riot pictures? There's none. There's like 3 of them, and they just keep on showing up. But I found this on Flickr. No Creative Commons, no attribution, so I used it. We want to actually trap these people trying to smash into our information superhighway internet blog. So they're actually going to use honeypots. Now, what exactly is a honeypot? Honeypot is a system that, while you're actually trying to convince the attacker, it's this high value, full of chock, wonderful information, social security numbers, credit card numbers, all kinds of wonderful things. It's a horribly secure device, but in reality, it's something that you are watching like a hawk and monitoring every move that they try to make. The first time that I actually really ever ran into this, and I think it's the first time, I've seen it referenced a couple of times as the first real honeypot, was an evening with Burford with Bill Cheswick and about 3 other authors. He was the AT&T internet connection managed the internet connection back in 1991, and he got attacked. And he set up on his real system, he set up a fake system so this attacker could log in, and they traced him all the way back down to, Norway, Netherlands, somewhere along there. Really fun story. It's publicly available on the internet, and also it's part of his practical firewalls. I believe that's what it's called. There are 2 main types of honeypots, high interaction and low interaction. High interaction is what you probably are all expecting a honeypot to be, a real actual system that you're plugging in and plugging out on the internet, be it physical or virtualized. And now the issue with a high interaction honeypot with a real computer plugged into your internet connection, obviously it's going to get hacked because, if it doesn't get hacked, please tell me who your ISP is. And it's with a real computer getting hacked, you're actually going to run into real threats and more problems, because when this person actually attempts to attack your computer and compromises it, he's actually going to probably do something bad with it that you don't want to happen on your internet connection. You want to be in charge of that. The other type of honeypot is a low interaction honeypot. There are 2 main ones that are in use today. One's called Nepenthes, and I'm probably mispronouncing that because it's some, Nepenthes, okay, thank you. I'm going to have to tell all my coworkers that. Or another thing called HoneyD. What it is it provides an attacker with what I call a movie set computer. You think you look at all these movie lots in Hollywood and wherever, and it's, Main Street, USA, or it's, some French village, and you look at it and it looks great from the front, but if you actually peer around behind, it's actually nothing behind it. And actually, another thing that I came up with while I was listening to a presentation, it's sort of like one of those non-player characters from like Final Fantasy I, where if you say 2 or 3 things to them, that's about it. I'm looking for my pet dog. It's a fake computer. It's not actually going to get compromised, or hopefully not. Therefore, it's less threats and less problems. You're not actually going to be hosting all these horrible, mean, nasty, ugly things and attacking other computers. High interaction honeypots. You really don't want to be running these. You can if you want to. I'm not going to tell you can't, but it's a lot of headaches, and you have to be on top of it at all times. You can basically use a real computer or a physical virtual computer with actual vulnerabilities, be it VM. You can run it on top of VMware, you can run it on top of Zen, user mode Linux, or if you want, just find your old Pentium 266 and toss that on your internet connection there. Like I said, real problems. Attackers can and will use your honeypot to attack other systems, because normally what you see someone coming in, breaking into your computer, dropping his little, botnet client, DDoS client, something else, and then giving it commands to scan for other computers, be it honeypots or not. There's a program out there called Snort Inline, which uses IP, FW, IP tables, and all that stuff, and Snort to see, okay, I have outbound traffic. Okay, is it bad? Yes. Okay, I'm not going to send it. Is it not bad? No. Okay, I can send it. What that'll allow the attacker to do is, grab his toolkit, do whatever he actually wants to your box, but not actually go out to the internet and attack other boxes. It will protect you. However, it is Snort. It's signature-based. It's not going to, unless you keep really on top of it with all your latest IDS definitions, you are going to, you might have something that sneaks through. You always need to keep on top of it. And as they always say, lots of risk, but lots of reward. Because with an actual computer, with people downloading stuff to it and attacking other systems, you are going to get the best picture available of what these people are doing to computers out on the internet. And you can do them, if you want to see, if you want to do research into that, this is exactly what you want to do. Low interaction honeypots, like I said, they're a fake computer. It's either a spoof device or a physical or a virtual device that spoofs vulnerabilities. Very much less of an attack profile. It's not actually a real computer, and so it's only kind of faking a real computer with fake vulnerabilities on it. Less of a threat. However, you're really going to start running into issues when they start attacking it and trying to get predicted responses off of it. And if they start seeing, hey, this is not exactly responding the way I expect it to, they're either going to think it's a busted system and they're not going to attack it anymore, or they're going to start, looking at it closer and they're going to find out, jigs up. Not as realistic as high interaction, like I said, but it will save you many headaches. If I was actually running a high interaction honeypot off my internet connection, I have to probably, re-wipe it and reinstall it every week at least. It will save you many a headache from doing that with a low interaction honeypot, because you won't have to be doing that, because hopefully will never get compromised. So let's talk about high interaction honeypots, because I think this slide's actually out of a thing. How a high interaction honeypots works. We have our evil attacker, and you can tell he's evil because he's wearing an eye patch, and he is attacking the honeypot server. Now the honeypot server is a real computer, and he's going to compromise it and do evil things to it. But what he doesn't know, and he hopefully won't find out, is that it's actually relaying everything he's doing over to a monitoring server. Now, this monitoring server can be doing it can be running Snort, it can be running an IDS, it can be running, all kinds of things that will sniff packets and track them. However, if, for example, he sets up Secure Shell and he starts running encryption, that's going to really start to become an issue, because you won't be able to see exactly what he's doing unless you start doing forensics on the box. There is a program out there called SEBEK, S-E-B-E-K. I completely forget where the website is. What it will allow you to do is it will allow you to monitor, it'll allow you to see exactly what he's doing at the console and replay it back as if you're staring at it, which is what Dudley Do Right is doing. Setup. Your two main choices are Linux and Windows, because 90% of what people are going to compromise are these two operating systems. Linux, you'll see a lot more, technically Windows, you'll see a lot more automated things like, Slammer, Sasser, all these little viruses you've seen over the past 6 years, but people haven't been patching their systems, so they're still out there. Linux, you'll start running into more of, botnet clients, which you will see on Windows, but to a lesser extent automated-wise. A lot of the botnet clients for Windows are client-side attacks. Aunt Mary goes to some random website, which is then compromised, and they download it onto her system. Linux, you're seeing a lot of stuff where people are running automated scripts to put their botnet clients directly on the computer via a vulnerability of some sort, and then just compromising like that, and then forgetting about it. Hardware-wise, nowadays, I guess, back in the days, you'd be they want to have more and more hardware, more and more processing cycles. You really don't see that nowadays. Bandwidth, that's the only thing they're interested in. If they can have, a nice fat pipe to download their, wares, porn, and MP3s, they're going to be happy. But sometimes you just don't even see that. Virtualization. Everyone says, oh, okay, I'll be cool. I'll run virtualization. I'll be able to have my honeypot, and I'll be able to keep my real server on at the same time without having to do any kind of, technical tomfoolery with my firewall rules. Yeah, you don't want to do that. I've heard that, 2 or 3 times, so I'm just going to toss it out here. You're never going to be 100% sure that there's not going to be something in the hypervisor that they're going to be able to see. They're going to break out. They're going to, compromise your entire box. You're never going to be 100% sure they're not going to notice. VMware, for example, is very easy to detect if you're running on top of it. User mode Linux, there's a couple of patches that will allow you to jail it and cheroot it. That will save you on the breakout side, but there are ways to tell that you're running within a virtualized system. And you hear people about running this on their local home LAN, on their local server with all their important documents. Don't. Bad. With high interaction honeypot, stopping attacks, like I said, you need to monitor it like a hawk. You need to do it 24/7, and as soon as you have it, you're compromised, you need to make sure of, you have the ability to be there to physically unplug that system and, disconnect from the internet so you're not attacking anybody. The hard part with this is actually making the determination of when the attacker is done. A lot of times it's easy when you're actually just dealing with someone who's, spraying and praying exploits, trying to scanning an entire net block, hoping he'll net 1 or 2 boxes. Sometimes, although rarely, you'll actually run to someone where it'll be a physical human on the other side of the keyboard, where you're never exactly sure when he's done. Is he done putting his stuff up there? Is he going to come back later? Do we want to keep this box up and running? It's going to be a judgment call, and I don't want to make that judgment call because, quite frankly, I don't want my system ever touching someone else's system where I get sued. You need to pull the plug immediately. Like I said, no, really now. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I'll give it another week or so, and what they're not knowing is they're not watching it close enough, and they're not realizing that they're scanning, half of China, which is bad. Like I said, snort-based utility that uses IP tables or IPFW to drop malicious packets, not 100% effective. Like I said, signatures. Low interaction honeypots. Now, I enjoy this picture because it's exactly what we want to present to the attacker. Look at that, it's a wonderful pool, there's waterfalls, it's going, come right in, and what in reality you don't really realize is that it's a chalk drawing. Anything below the stairs is all chalk. 3 low interaction honeypots. Nepenthes. Emulates fake vulnerabilities on a physical computer to collect exploits. It runs basically it binds to a bunch of ports where, Samba or Windows file sharings, or I think it also does Apache. We can get into more of that later. The second one is HoneyD. What HoneyD more or less does is it emulates fake computers on your network in which you can, send scanned responses. This is more or less exactly what the NPC analogy is. There's another utility out there called Honeytrap. What Honeytrap does is it waits for anything to connect to your computer, binds a port to that, and then just tries to capture whatever is sent to it. Nepenthes, you need a physical computer to set it up. Like I said, it'll bind to a bunch of ports. It'll, I think it does FTP, Samba, Apache. It emulates a ton of exploits. Or exploitable services. So when you see someone running an automated exploit that says, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm attackable. Please attack me," and what it then does is it waits for the person to send whatever they're going to do and collects whatever they're sending to you. And I have a wonderful 2-act play. The attacker there sends an exploit. The Nepenthes server says, "Oh, geez, I'm vulnerable to that. Just give me whatever you're sending me, whatever." And it sends its evil bits of code to compromise your computer, and then it promptly stops and captures it and seals it all up for a nice little box for you to look at later.
Quick question. You say Linux all the time. What about Solaris? Is that involved too?
You can, well, we can get into that on HoneyD. Solaris, I've never actually used in a honeypot environment, but with a high interaction honeypot, you want to run Solaris, you want to run HPUX, you want to run, Windows 3.1, anything. Oh, yeah. With a high interaction honeypot, you can choose whatever operating system you did. I choose Windows and Linux because they're the most commonly exploited ones out there. Occasionally, when you're going through your snort logs, you'll see, either a sadmin-d or what's the other one they always toss out? The Solaris telnet exploit. Very rarely do you see stuff that's specifically tailored to Solaris, but if you want to toss an old Solaris box out there and really make them wonder what the heck's going on, go right ahead. And so we have Dudley Do-Right, who has captured the evil Trojan, and the attacker is saying curses. Nepenthes pros, it can be used on any existing server. So, for example, if you have on your home DS broadband connection a web server that you're using to share photos or an FTP server that you're sharing with friends, you can disable those modules so that Nepenthes won't listen on those ports and run on everything else. And you will be able to collect exploits and do whatever you want with them and still run your home server. Again, this goes back to that whole, are you comfortable with this running on your home server? Because as with any program, as on the last point, since it's listening on a port, it can get compromised. I don't think I've ever actually seen a security bug with Nepenthes, but I'm sure they exist. There was actually something that they were talking about on their weblog where the botnet herders were getting wise, and what Nepenthes will do is say, for example, I'm compromised and I'm sitting behind my NAT firewall, and I have a 192.168 address, and my compromised computer is saying, I'm scanning everybody, but when they say, okay, grab my file via TFTP, I'm on 192.168, Nepenthes is smart enough to actually say, okay, let me go try with the IP address it connected me to, and maybe we'll get lucky. What the botnet herders were doing was sending with a 192.168 address and seeing if anyone connected back to them when they were doing their scans and making more or less a real-time black hole list of the Nepenthes nodes. So they changed the default configuration to not do that. The pros with Nepenthes is that if you ever want to collect Windows exploits, Nepenthes is your program. It will do all kinds of wonderful, Sasser, Blaster, it keeps track of Slammer, and there's like a giant list of exploits or automatic virus exploits that it will try to connect and allow you to monitor. The cons with Nepenthes is it's somewhat difficult to set up. You want to run it on a binary if you have the chance, because compiling it from scratch is rather difficult. Like, I almost pulled my hair out, and I consider myself fairly okay in setting up software. Its knowledge of exploits is kind of limited. Like, for example, I was actually running it, this happened a couple of months ago, where there was something running rampant on the network. We didn't know what exactly it was. It was connecting to our Nepenthes box, and it was saying, unknown exploit, I'm not going to do anything. So, which is really annoying when you're trying to figure out exactly what the hell's going on. Logging is a bear. The logs are horrid in it. It's not going to tell you exactly what's going on, and actually trying to configure it to do verbose logging is very painful in itself. You can tell that it was done more or less as a hack, where it's sort of like, oh shoot, we should really log this. Like I said, since it's listening on a port, it can get compromised. Honeytrap, what it is sort of like Nepenthes diet. It basically listens for any type of connection to any port on the system, and then it opens up, I'm listening on that port, please send me whatever you're trying to send me. It also, it's Windows, Linux, it doesn't really matter. It can be installed on existing machines, much like Nepenthes, and this is very much a homeless man's honeypot, which is even below poor man. How Honeytrap works, you send your exploit and it goes, no. That's all it does. It just, whatever this, packet is, it just sits there and goes, yeah, keep on sending it. I'm cool. Honeytrap is that it's dead simple. It's very easy. It's very easy to set up. It's kind of, I wouldn't say very easy. It's easier to set up than Nepenthes. Very limited interactivity. I think there's a couple of things out there where people are actually trying to make it run scripts and actually say, oh, okay, this is, you connected me on port 21. I'm an FTP server. Please give me your username and password. But as for Nepenthes, it does a very good job. It does a very good job running on CIFS and Samba and Windows file sharings. Honeytrap doesn't do that. And technically, Honeyd doesn't do it either. Which is Honeytrap does keep logs, which are slightly better than Nepenthes, but that's sort of like being the tallest midget. Honeyd. Hey, I'm just saying like it is. Honeyd. Honeyd was developed by Niels Provost, who now works for Google, so he's really smart. Emulates, it's a really nice program. It emulates hosts on a network that either run programs or scripts specified in the configuration file. If you have, a /24 sitting around on your network, which I'm sure you all do, you can tell it, Honeyd, listen for every type of connection to this Class C network that I'm going to give you, and you have to, do some ARP issues if you're on Ethernet. Listen for anything, and here's a bunch of addresses. You're running a web server on this port. You're running a Windows box on this port, running an IIS emulator, and you can have it configured down. When I first ran into this, I was on a capture the flag contest, and we had a Class C network that we could hack around on where everyone else was sitting. So there were 8 boxes, and I said, okay, well, how can I actually make this very annoying for everyone else? So I started up Honeyd, and I had it listen on every other possible IP address space. So 8 boxes suddenly blossomed into 253. I wasn't very popular that weekend. It's got a very good amount of IP trickery. Like, for example, Class Cs are just the beginning of it. I've heard people running, more or less entire, you can say, okay, here's your Class C, okay, but you're also connected to this Class C over there. But if when you're responding on it, emulate yourself over a 64 kilobit link, and it will do it. And you can say, okay, this link that you're entering, this Class C, when you respond to it, pretend you have a very latent connection, like, 100 millisecond ping, is nothing. You want to do it like, 1,000 milliseconds. And it does a very good job trying to convince people that, I'm an actual, in reality, you're a Linux box running on some type of IP, but, you'll respond back, oh, I'm Solaris. And, it'll completely fool Nmap, because what Honeyd does is take Nmap's, I don't know what exactly they call it, the file they use to determine whether or not what operating system you're on, fingerprinting system, thank you. And it uses that to spoof its responses back. So, whoops. Anyway, so we have Dudley Do-Right again. What this is the attacker then connects to something called Ghost. I don't know, that's not the official term, that's something I came up with. I don't exactly know what they call the spoofed computers. Maybe they just call them spoofed computers for all I know. The attacker comes in and connects to one of the ghosts, at which point Honeyd then spoofs a reply back with the IP that the attacker connected to, saying, it says Sin. Okay, I'm this IP, Sinac. What do you want? Now, the interesting part of this is that with the Honeypot server or the Honeyd server, you can actually have these ghosts inside of a demilitarized zone, and the Honeyd server can be sitting on your, non-connected to the internet, but listening to that demilitarized zone, so people can't actually attack it. So, while, for example, and actually I think this is covered in the cons, they can attack those Honeypot ghosts, and if they ever crash the Honeyd daemon, all those ghosts will just suddenly disappear. You probably will not get compromised. You probably is not a very good odds in network security, but it's safer than running a Nepenthes, which is actually running a server on a box without a physical hardware. Honeyd services. You can forward back, what you do is when you set up a Honeyd ghost, you say, okay, ghost, you're listening on this IP. You are, running, HPUX9. You're running a, web server on port 80, you're running a telnet on port 23, you're running an FTP on port 21. What these services, when you're saying you're running FTP web and something, you have to tell it either you want to run a certain script, and there's a bunch of canned scripts out there, we'll get into that later. You can actually also forward these ports back to hosts, hosted somewhere else. These are dangerous because if you're actually running a vulnerable host somewhere else that is actually being used for these Honeyd services, if they exploit that host will get compromised. So you want to make sure that host is in its little padded cell so it can't get anywhere, except for your Honeyd server. Scripts, I actually started writing something called the Script Kiddie Annoyance Toolkit. It's, IMAP daemon, telnet daemon, I think I did, World Wide Web, and basically all it does is it just logs exactly what it runs, and then it's, returns a spoofed response, which is normally for an Apache server, it says 400 or 404, 400 meaning I have no idea what you're trying to tell me. There's also scripts available on the Honeyd website. There's a nice little program called IAS EMU, which is an IAS emulator. It'll emulate IAS 5, and it's done a really good job. They did a really good job spoofing a default IAS server. Another thing that you can do with Honeyd is you can just set up tar pits where they'll be scanning, and they'll same thing with Librias, that they it sends a synac and then it sets a window size down to 0, where if you're scanning, they're hosed. Honeyd is that it's very lightweight. The pros are that's lightweight. It can emulate very numerous, links, devices, computers. Basically, if Nmap can identify it, Honeyd can more or less spoof it. These ghosts can run everything. You can actually have responding back as a Linux box, but you can have all your ports forwarded to a Windows box. Really screw up those people. It's somewhat harder to compromise. Technically, anything that ever interacts with the network can be compromised. Honeyd just gives you a little bit of abstraction there where it's going to be a touch more difficult if you have your firewall rules set up. The cons is that it requires a separate IP for each host. For example, if you're going to try to set this up on your broadband connection and you have a DMZ, but there's a host already in that DMZ, you need to get rid of that host, otherwise Honeyd won't work. Good for monitoring, very bad to try to figure out what they're trying to do with advanced attacks. For example, Honeyd does not do a good job of, there's no way to really script Samba. You just really can't do it because of the way the protocols are set up, and Honeyd wasn't designed for that on the scripting side. You can, forward that to another Samba server, but that gets back to that original point where you want to have that incredibly padded from somewhere else. Now you have all these honeypots set up. You want to monitor them because what happens if you're mucking along when you're not actually looking at them? Bad things. Why are you actually investing your time to do it in the first place? Snort, enough said. It's everyone uses it for an IDS. Technically, you can use any IDS if you have yourself a $10,000 IDS sitting underneath your bed. You can use this to monitor your honeypot. For the rest of us, Snort, developed by Marty Roche back in 1998, is a lightweight IDS. Lord knows it isn't that now. It's more or less the gold standard in open source IDS systems. He's made it in his own little company. Everyone seems to be using it. There's a couple of contenders out there that may develop in the next couple of years that may provide competition, but we'll see. Snort, and one of the major complaints that everyone has about it, is that it's signature-based. It's a lot like your antivirus updates. If you're not keeping those signatures up to date, you're not going to be able to catch anything. There's a couple of utilities to monitor Snort. Snort provides this wonderful little alerts file where, if you want to have it up in a console window and tailing it, that's very easy to do. But if you want to try to catch up to it, come back in the morning and you see, oh, hey, I had 200 attacks last night. It's going to be rather difficult to actually see what actually was going on. So they made utilities for it. I'm going to horribly mispronounce this. Squeal? I don't know. It's an acronym for something. It's a very nice tickle-based monitor where you feed it an alerts file, and it will then, make it all out into nice parsing, and you can tell exactly what was going on and say, okay, this IP attacked me 1,500 times last night. I should actually look at that. The other one is that came out is Base. There was a wonderful product called ACID, which is the Analysis Console for Intrusion Detection. ACID stopped being worked on about a while ago, very long time. And so what someone did is they saw ACID and they said, oh, wow, this is a really nice program. Too bad it isn't kept up to date. So they decided to keep it up to date themselves, and they came up with Base. ACID Base. I know. And Base stands for Basic Analysis and Security Engine. You can't tell that was backronymed, can you? Base.security.net. Squeal is squeal.sourceforge.net. There's a very, very, very lightweight program called SnortSnarf. SnortSnarf, what it does is it takes alert file. It actually it's not under being maintained anymore. But you take an alert file, you read it into SnortSnarf, or you take a Snort alert file, you read it into SnortSnarf. It creates all kinds of wonderful beautiful HTML files where you can put it on a static web page and not have to worry about PHP or SQL or just toss it into Internet Explorer if you really want to. It'll work fine. Base requires a SQL backend, and it requires the snort to be configured to feed into that SQL backend. Simple to do. Snort's very good with that with its Barnyard plugin. Pardon me. TCP dump. The Swiss Army chainsaw of packet sniffing. I'm sure most people have either heard of it or have seen it before. If you haven't, wow, that cave must be very musty. TCP dump, you can use it to monitor everything. Basically, you can say TCP dump, just capture every packet you see ever and write it to a file. If you run TCP dump, there's something called a snaplin. TCP dump by default will only capture X amount of bytes, and if you're monitoring, say, an Ethernet segment, your packets can be up to 1,500 bytes. So it's only going to capture that first X amount of bytes for what the snaplin is configured for. So if you're using it to monitor your intrusion detection, you want to get a best picture of what's going on, you want to have it to set as your maximum transmittable unit. I learned that the hard way, as you can tell. It's very handy to piece together new attacks or see stuff that Snort missed. Snort, like I said, is signature-based. It's not going to capture everything. So what you want to do is you want to have TCP dump to capture everything that Snort is missing, and if Snort, for example, has some type of, if Snort doesn't have a zero-day exploit for its signature yet that just came out not even 3 hours ago, TCP dump will allow you to see what the heck's going on, and if someone at Snort is at the wheel, you can actually configure your own Snort rule for that. A lot of the times with Internet Storm Center, if people actually go visit it, if they see a new exploit come out, they ask for people to capture TCP dump, and you can say, "Ha! I can do that. I can mail that to you." What it is there's a PCAP format. PCAP is a pretty standard way that TCP dump writes its files, and you can import that into Snort, Wireshark, Network grep, ngrep. It's a very standard. Almost any type of packet dumping or packet sniffing utility will support it. Warning, if you are using TCP dump, and I'm sure that no one here is doing anything illegal off their internet connection, you are monitoring your network. If you are going to monitor your network, and this also comes out for Snort, you may record traffic that you may not want recorded. Going to PersianKitty.com or something. Make sure that your TCP dump, Snort, whatever you're using to monitor your network is only picking up the packets you want it to, and not to say, your console where you're trading on Pirate Bay. So if you get a knock on the door, you're not having a wonderful, here, have my libpcap file. You can use that with Wireshark. Monitoring Honeyd and Nepenthes. Now, Honeyd and Nepenthes, Honeyd has a very arcane file structure for its logs. Nepenthes, like I said, it's a hack. They kind of said, oh, geez, we really need to write a logging feature on this. Nepenthes, the Honeyd log are very arcane. It's sort of like, host IP space, your destination IP space port number, and then it's 4 or 5 different type of file lines you can get from that. Thankfully, I came across this wonderful utility that not a lot of people are using called Prelude. It's called Prelude IDS, which is stupid because it's not an IDS. They're like, oh, geez, we'll go create an IDS that will compete with Snort. And then they realize, wait, Snort doesn't really suck that bad now, does it? It's very much a way to collate indications and warnings. You don't need to use it, but it has a pretty web-based console, so you can show it off to your supervisor, significant other, or whoever wants to actually see it. It's very nice. It has a great program, horrible documentation. They just toss some things up on their website, and they're like, it's documented, we're all set. We would really like some other people to write our documentation for us. Yeah, no shit. It's really bad. I'm not kidding. It's disgusting. It's 8 lines of here's how to set up the web interface. Please, attach slot A to tab B. Okay, there you go. You're all set. Wait a minute, it's not working. Too bad. It's open source, but it's not really open source. It's released under GPL, but if you ever want to create a patch for it, you have to sign over your patch to the maintainers so that they own it. Asterisk does the same exact thing. I've never been comfortable with it, so whenever I create a patch, I just release it under my own little license, and I don't let them incorporate it into their source tree. Forget you. How Prelude works. Well, so for example, can we see it actually? So the two files down at the bottom are, say, like a honeyd file and a nepenthes file. That gets read into something called a Prelude LML. Now, the LML stands for Log Manager Lackey. I don't know. They thought it was something cute, but I can never remember what it's called. That Prelude LML and these, like, say, for example, you have a snort installation running, that can both be fed into something called a Prelude manager. That actually does all the correlation and will log it into one giant database. And then from there, you can actually, look at the database raw if you're using pre-Weka, which is what it's up on the top there. I'll get a better screenshot later. You can monitor it. And then it's not just honeyd and it's not just nepenthes. If you're using Prelude LML can support a lot of different log file managers or log formats. Apache, your system logs. So, for example, if you're running a high interaction honeypot, you can actually use Prelude LML. Of course, if some attacker actually sees this, they'll start to wonder what exactly is going on, and likely they'll kill it immediately. And here's a sort of close-up pre-Weka. This is just some of the stuff that it saw. This is a screenshot right off their webpage. So, for example, I'm not sure if anyone can see it. The first line says, webmisc robot text access. That's a snort alert. Then it says, two TCP packets dropped, which was coming in through Prelude LML, which is actually something from the internal firewall. TCP packet dropped, and then toward the bottom, you notice how everything is nice and orange up on the top and how we got down to red. We know it's bad because it is red. It says, back orifice traffic detected, TF, get it, and that's all both Prelude LML alerts and snort alerts. But what it actually has done, and you really can't see it from here, is that it's all correlated to a single time frame from a single IP. So this 82 dots whatever character is doing something very nasty. So it's something that you actually want to look at. Now, response. Now we're running this wonderful little snort We're running this wonderful little snort in our honeypot. What exactly are we going to do with it? And this is exactly, don't we all want to do this? Just find whoever's doing it, just hit them real hard. Okay, so you got attack. Now what? Now there's three real options you can take. You can do nothing, you can attack back, or you can take down the server. Do nothing. Easiest thing to do. Oh, look, I got attacked. Saves your time, effort, and inevitable frustration. Trust me, I know. Cons is that you're actually not being a good neighbor and you're not actually accomplishing anything. Your choice is yours. Attacking back. Bad idea. Cons. I'm sure no one here has ever even thought about doing this. Illegal. Are you really attacking the attacker? A lot of the times, you'll actually see do we have a question there?
Have you ever heard of a botnet herder? Maybe he's propagating his botnet, and another herder having a honeypot to capture that and then using that as attacking back. Does that occur?
Yes, I actually haven't heard of the honeypot, but actually the Shadow Server project used to have publicly accessible all of its statistics on honeypots. On botnets. And what they were actually seeing, and they actually had to remove a lot of people's access from this, is that botnet herders were going around saying, "Oh, here's a really big botnet. I want that." And they were attacking the computer. They, somehow compromised the botnet where they either came in and they saw, okay, all of these computers are attached to this botnet. They obviously must be vulnerable to some type of vulnerability. Let me just attack these computers rather than scanning entire Class A. So what they were seeing is, these computers, someone was connecting up to an IRC server, seeing the infected computers, attacking those infected computers, making them part of their botnet rather than the, other bad person. And so they actually had to remove that. I'm sure honeypots are actually being used by the people who we don't want using them, but I've never heard of anything I've never heard any hard evidence of it, but it's definitely within the realm of possibility. So as I said, illegal. I'm sure we all know that. Are you really attacking the attacker? A lot of the times you'll just be attacking some helpless grandma in, northern New Jersey who, downloaded this thing off the web trying to get Bonzi Buddy, but... And the other question is, what exactly are you attacking? What exactly are you accomplishing? All right, so you hacked all these computers. Congratulations. You remove the evil botnet client. These computers are still going to get attacked. They're still going to get compromised because unless you're going out and being Robin Hood and patching these systems, which is a nice little legal loophole, I guess. Oh, I was just trying to help people. Nah, it ain't gonna fly. You're gonna get, yesterday at 10 a.m., they had a wonderful issue about researching botnets and legal issues. Wow, I was kind of afraid of some of the stuff that I was doing. I thought it was, solid, tight, I wasn't actually attacking anybody. I was just, I will show you an example of some of the things you can do afterwards. But some of the stuff where I just try to take down servers where I say, these servers are compromised, please remove them. Now I'm not sure if that's 100% legal or not. There are no pros. You are part of the problem. Takedowns. Now, takedown has a bad name because we all know about the Mythic movie. This is not, you're not going to be punching, whoever that was, Shimamura. Pros with takedowns is that they're legal, effective, and they actually remove the immediate problem. What it is we'll show you later, is, okay, I got attacked. All right, let me go contact that ISP, talk to Bob, who's, the first tier help desk support, and try to get that removed. Normally doesn't even know what the hell you're talking about. This is very much a whack-a-mole, because despite you trying to remove this computer, there are going to be 2 or 3 definitely set up. And like I said, inevitable frustration. This is exactly what I'm talking about. It's a lot of effort, and you can keep on some of these ISPs for like weeks at a time and not have this attacking computer removed. They'll be like, well, geez, we contacted the person, but he didn't actually leave us a valid email address, and his phone number's changed, and just take it off, unplug the damn thing. So we're actually going to go through a web takedown. And this is exactly what I love to do, just take down the hard way. So this happened actually last week. I got 3 of my honeypots got probed. Web and Snort there was a forecast vulnerability. I had no idea what the hell forecast was. Sounded like some type of porn thing. Yeah, and this is exactly how I feel down the bottom. I figured, Edgar Allan Poe, I have my cigar and my bottle of cognac, and I'm, hearing rapping on my door. I looked a bit closer. Oh, pardon me. Let's see, I just saw, okay, it was from Snort. It was at, 7:12 at 3 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't up then, so it definitely wasn't something I was doing. It's the Snort alert was a WebMISC 4-task remote code execution attempt. And you see all the stuff coming in from Snort. Snort actually has this really nice plugin called IDMEF, which is the intrusion detection message exchange format. A couple of months, actually probably about 6 months ago at this point, it became a RFC. So it actually is a valid, XML format for that other vendors hopefully will start supporting soon. So you can actually have your other IDSs and firewalls start reporting into your Prelude server, or you might actually find something that actually has better documentation than Prelude, so you can move to that. It has a little Snort-specific stuff down the bottom, like your vendor-specific, your CVE, your bug track ID. Your vendor-specific Snort ID. So going further down the line, this is further down the page, same page. Here's all the stuff from Snort, and we saw, okay, it's a Git attempt. It's, you look down way at the bottom, calendar tools, send reminders, and it's... all my presentation will be up on my website later. So it was trying to do a remote file include attempt. If you look at the bug track ID and the CVE, you'll actually see what exactly the bug is. Remote file inclusion, I sanitize it off the website because this is exactly the point I was trying to make. If you say, okay, this person attacked me, this is an IP. The IP that I didn't print out, that's the actual person probably attacking me because it's Russian Federation. However, this IP that they gave us that I did blur out is that it's it's a completely innocent third party, which we will find out later. So another word of warning. I just added this the other day after hearing all about my legal things. I didn't do any of this. My friend Bob did. He just said, I gave him the IP. I said, if you really want to look at this, go right ahead. This is an interesting thing. It's like, I always knew it was kind of a hazy gray area, and now I know even more it's a hazy gray area with that presentation yesterday. Whether or not, what exactly you're doing, there's a question of whether or not it's actually illegal or not. You can say, I'm a researcher, but try saying that to the FBI knocking on your door at 4 a.m. So anyway, we saw this file. It's /temp/1.gif. That's a file they were trying to feed us. We decided to grab it. Notice how I use Torify, so it's going through an anonymous proxy. Even if it isn't illegal, do you really want this to come back to you? Or you might wake up to a nice denial of service on your hands. Believe me, it's happened. to me. Anyway, so this 1.gif, it's an awfully small file. It's only 104 bytes. Oh, Morpheus hacked me. That's strange. Where have I heard this before? Now, if we go back to the snort, it actually if you go look down really close and you have really good eyes, you'll see user agent Morpheus effing scanner, and it's not sanitized. Oh, wrong way. Okay, obviously it's a 1.gif. It's not actually a GIF file. All right, so I know it's actually a hostile attempt. It's not someone accidentally misconfiguring their server who's trying to probe my server. Stranger things have happened. So what I had, actually, this is where it starts getting me even more questionable. Do you actually really want to see what's further on this server? You can actually load up Tor, find the links. You don't actually want to use a real web server, because what happens is it's all kinds of nasty exploits sitting there. But okay, Apache 2051, that's kind of old. Is this actually the attacker? No, probably not. If this actually was an open directory and we saw, like, Microsoft Office 2007.iso, chances are this isn't num pop. If we go to the actual website, it's all blurred out, so hopefully no one will be able to see exactly what it is. It's an actual website, had a nice little front page. It said, oh, we're doing this wonderful service for people. And I was like, I really don't think this is actually some type of person trying to attack me. I think it's probably either a third-party computer or someone trying to compromise me. However, looking upon the IP address, I found it was hosted in the United States. If you ever want to do a takedown, United States people are the most cooperative. That's not saying much. Again, tallest midget. If you're trying to take something down in Russia, good luck. If you're trying to take something down in China, again, good luck. This is what I wrote up. Takedowns are a wonderful exercise in social engineering. I was like, oh, geez, I would really like to actually start doing this and actually, try to do the good neighbor on the internet thing. So I created my own little third-party entity. I called it Hemic Labs. Started my own little website, put all kinds of cute little things up, and now I'm an official security researcher, aren't I? So I wrote this wonderful little letter to the hosting company. Dear sir, or to whom it may concern, Hemic Lab, an independent security research group, has found tools being used to attack systems stored on a website you host. You're receiving this message because you are listed in the contact section of the NetBlock's Who Is information. In order to get this actually address I was sending it in, I actually didn't go over this. I did a Who Is on the IP address, and it will give you an abuse email address. This is who you want to email. You include the URLs that are hosting the malicious code. And I did find a second malicious URL, which I'm not going to talk about because it had all kinds of other nastiness in there, which I'm still trying to repress. Anyway, they were both .gif files, so I said, these tools are PHP files despite the .gif extension. The website you host seems to have compromised by a third party and using it to probe systems. If you're responsible for the security of IP, please take it down. And you put caps, so you really want to get this across. Your prompt attention is vital to limit the process number of victims, and they usually understand that that's important. Pardon?
They probably just still delete it most of the time.
A lot of the times you do find where they just delete it and I'm all set. And
Token response, they still, and they don't do anything.
yeah, a lot of the time, well, you run into 3 or 4 different responses. I don't know exactly what occurred here, but a little while later, it was 404. So I'm all set. Whether or not they deleted that file and then just sent the user on their merry little way, I don't know. Is there an actual exploit somewhere in the site? Yeah, probably. I don't know if they fixed it. A lot of the times you'll see a wonderful little thing where your server is not responding anymore. Or you'll see this website has been suspended. Please contact if you're the owner, please contact support. So this is actually a good thing. Sometimes you have to send out repeated emails to the people. Sometimes you have to include more caps locks. Sometimes you have to get involved with the upstream network provider saying, you have this ISP and he's doing evil, nasty, ugly things, and he's not responding to me. And a lot of times with level 3, I know a couple of people who know people in level 3, and they can make the phone call to the person paying the bill saying, if you want your network connection still up, you need to fix this. Because they are somewhat cooperative. So now that we have all this stuff, where do we go from here? These are ideas that I have absolutely no time to implement, so have fun. I would really like to have a little embedded box so I can put on my parents' DSL connection, reporting into a central server, have their own little mini honeypot set up, because Lord knows mom isn't using her DMZ for anything. And actually have it distributed across there. Have something where it's more or less turnkey, and just have something where if you have Aunt Edna in Fargo, North Dakota, saying, please, Aunt Edna, I'd really love you to plug this box on your internet connection and just turn it on and it'll be all set and it'll report into, oh, you won't tell her it'll report into my server, but you'll see this wonderful little thing on your Prelude saying, you now have this client sitting in this, Fargo, North Dakota IP, and you can get very good geographically distributed information that is on many different networks, so you can get a really good idea of what actually is going on the global interwebs. Another thing is that a nice little way of, if you're running a honeypot, set up a Prelude server someplace and have people feeding their IDMEF packets into your Prelude server, so you can get a good idea there too. Real-time intelligent gathering system to know what's probing what. We have all this information. Let's go try to make some type of list of, okay, these are the naughty IPs. Let's go find out what exactly they're doing and try to take them down. I mean, they're good ideas, but who knows? I don't have time to do them. I don't know use. Some links, honey.org, nepenthes.mwcollect.org. Nepenthes and Honeytrap are made by the same group of people. Prelude IDS and SCAT will be released sometime next week when I actually have a breather after the conference. Stank Dog, Nen Theory, and the rest of the DDP who are sitting right there. binrev.com forum, Boston 2600, and I guess I didn't save that. Quine, Beaker, and everyone else from Beansec. And Scott, who's my inspiration, and he's just a wonderful kind of person, and he has a beer or something, I don't know. So, questions? Yes? Come up to the mic, I think everyone's been asking that. Wow, I actually did get under an hour.
2 questions. Have you seen that ISP? Oh. Okay, there we go. Have you seen that ISPs don't want to cut off paying customers, and so they just kind of ignore you because of that?
Yes, that's exactly what you're saying. They're like, oh, it's a paying customer. We don't want to disconnect him. We tried to contact him, but he isn't answering his phone. He's in his, Tahiti beach house enjoying his Web 2.0 funds.
And then for the other question, for your first idea, would a plugin for the open source Linksys software work so that your little Linksys router is running as a honeypot?
Linksys router is actually more or less what I was picturing, but I'm not sure. I think they were trying to port Nepenthes over to UClib before all that. How much time do I have left? Oh, good. Trying to do it for a Linksys box, but I don't think they actually got as far as they wanted to. I'm sure there are some brilliant minds in here that actually do that for them. Another person there?
Yeah, in terms of the snort log analysis, how does the smooth wall snort analysis compare with something, say, like Prelude?
I don't know. I've never used smooth wall. Find out. Tell me.
Well, it's fantastic.
I've heard good things about it. I've never actually used it in practice, though. I'm actually curious as to whether or not SmoothWall will have an IDMEF plugin. If they have that, they can feed already, normalized reports over to Prelude, which I'm sure will happily accept them.
I was going to ask a question that the previous guy asked about using a Linksys box as an IDS box. It sounds like a good idea. I have no idea if it's practical.
If you can put Prelude LML, it supports a variety of log formats. So they may have something for SmoothWall already in there. There's in their definitions, they have somewhere on the range of 20 to 30 files, just in some things that I've never even heard of before.
And then another question, how much trouble, if any, have you had with people accusing you of being a spammer for giving them these automated warnings?
No, I've never actually gotten stuff from the people I'm contacting. I did get a report from my ISP because I found this actually really isn't related to this. I found a bug in a software program. I sent it to the person. He patched it. He thanked me in his, daily, a new version is out. Please download it. And thanks to Mayhemic Labs for finding this. And they gave me a link to their website. I then got a report from my ISP saying, someone reported you as advertising and spam. What? No, it's not me. No. Look at the actual message. Come on. My ISP isn't the best thing in the world. What, do we have somebody else? Oh, geez.
Hi. Oh,
Hi.
I'm sorry. The links, are these going to be available on your webpage? Did you mention what your webpage is?
Actually, yeah, I have my contact information. I thought I had that after that.
No,
blackratchet.blackit.org, blackratchet.org, and my Twitter name is in Izmir.
I missed the links page. Was that PersianKittens.net or
PersianKitty.com?
.com.
I have no idea what it actually redirects you. Go there at your own risk.
I'm on the wrong page. Thank you.
All All right, so I think we'll go over here next. Do we have some?
I was just going to ask, do you know of any sources for things like statistics about average time to resolution after an infection or a source of attack has been reported to a hosting company?
No, have no idea, and it can vary so much from company to company. Who knows? I actually had to talk with my honeypot. I got repeated SQL Slammer attempts. That is the number one thing you'll be seeing on your store if you're running on honeypot, SQL Slammer requests. Like, I literally get about 20 to 30 per day. I got something from the Ford Corporation. Sent an email, no response. Called them up, said, you have SQL Slammer. That's not us. It's your IP. I don't care if it's UDP. It's a SQL Slammer. They don't spoof IPs. But they eventually got rid of it. And actually, when I started looking at the IP, it was a VPN account. I guess they don't consider that their problem. Over there?
Yes, earlier you showed that letter,
Mm-hmm.
and you said it made a big impact. I think that will make that even more of an impact. Is you send it in the language of the country that is hosting the
Yeah,
ISP
I'm only
you've
doing.
got to
I don't
contact.
speak any other language, so I don't know how to translate it.
Then you find a translator and you get them to translate, because that's the only way you're going to really get effect from those guys.
I'm sure if I really wanted to, I could take to my wife and she could translate it into Portuguese, but not really
Thank you.
too many Portuguese IPs I'm running into. Go ahead.
Since obviously we can't run a botnet, is there anybody that is putting together any sort of central clearinghouse to organize honeypots in any way so that they can all report to a central
There
place?
is the HoneyNet project. I forgot what their website is. They're more of a research perspective. I'm not sure how they're actually going to take to a bunch of crazy hacker dudes coming out and saying, hey, we want to run honeypots. A lot of times you'll see high interaction honeypots from them. They actually have this wonderful little bootable CD called Honeywall, which will has that SEBEC in there, which will transfer stuff to your console and will run a vulnerable computer. I completely forgot to put that link in anyway. But I'm not sure if there's anything like that for end user connections.
So basically, we're just working on individual responses.
Working on individual responses. I don't know I can't say how long do I have. Was that 0 or? I gotta stop. Okay, if anyone has any questions, I'll be out in the hallway. Alcohol accepted. Thank you.